This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with this plight? Aha! Barb made her move. She opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
Hello, my name is Damon Friedman, co-founder and president of SOF Missions. As a 20-year veteran within Special Operations, I've gone through many challenges due to my military service and time in combat. We felt called to start SOF Missions to serve our fellow brothers and sisters in arms, focusing on suicide prevention and resiliency. Our mission at SOF Missions is to empower warriors to find purpose and be resilient. Since 2011, when we started the organization, almost 3 million men and women have deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the scars of war take a toll on their psychological, physical, social, and spiritual health. Many veterans feel a sense of hopelessness and a loss of purpose when they return to civilian life. They feel isolated and alone, unable to reconnect. And in the greatest of tragedies, over 20 veterans lose all hope and take their own lives. Our goal at SOF Missions is to provide veterans the tools and resources so that they don't become a statistic. We offer a unique approach to combating veteran suicide through a whole health, intradisciplinary model. The Be Resilient program is a 4-pillar methodology that addresses the areas of psychological, physical, social, and spiritual wellness. We provide care through 3 delivery methods: medical clinics, retreats, and educational training. Since we started back in 2011, we have been able to reach veterans in all 50 states and have served over 3,000 veterans through the Be Resilient program. Being resilient is a multifaceted and complex issue. We know that to find a lasting solution, we have to address the whole warrior. Many challenges cannot be solved by providing the treatments and modalities of just one component, but by tackling them all. Now, we've expanded our services to include law enforcement and first responders. Together, we can make a lasting impact in the lives of warriors across the nation. To learn more, visit our website at sofmissions.org.
For your post assignment, all units proceed to your post assignment.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation. MisFitNation. The MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience need to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
Woo! All right. It's Thursday, and the last day of our Veterans Week salute. Before we get started, we do have a somber news tonight. We want you to remember Corporal Blake Reynolds, Delaware County Sheriff's Office, Indiana. End of watch Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. He was also an Army veteran. So keep Corporal Reynolds' family, friends, peers, community in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this sudden change in life and move forward and get into their healing. Each day, their families know when they suit up, it could be the day that something bad happens, but they wish it wouldn't happen. So tonight, we have our fifth and final veteran coming on. So welcome back to MisFitNation and our Veterans Week shows. Tonight, Jake is at the helm. We're honored to sit down with U.S. Army veteran Olivia Nunn, a powerhouse in leadership, communications, and advocacy. After over 20 years of military service, Olivia continues her mission by amplifying veteran voices, empowering women, and driving meaningful conversations through her podcasts, Unbreakable Storm and Women of War. Her story is one of resilience, reinvention, and relentless service, both in and out of uniform. So Jake's going to dive right into this incredible journey and have a great show. Let's rock it out, Jake.
Hey, good evening, Misfit Nation. Hey, Dad's letting me run solo tonight, so let's do this. Hey, Rich gave an introduction of our veteran that's coming on here tonight, Olivia Nunn, excuse me. Got tongue-tied there. But before we get started, I want to make sure if you're joining us this evening to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that share button, get us out there. And if you're on here tonight, you're feeling the darkness, you decide that, you don't think that you can go any further, do something about it. Pick up that telephone, dial 988, take option 1. And if you're a veteran, and talk to somebody. If you don't want to talk to them, hit us up at jake@themisfitnation.com, steven@themisfitnation.com, or info@themisfitnation.com. Just write your name and your phone number. We will get back to you. Tomorrow is going to be too beautiful of a day for you not to be here in it. And we would sure hate to lose you. If you haven't called 988 before, they help. Trust me. Someone that I dearly love called that number, and they got them the help that they need. So I know it works. So call that number, please. Now, without any further ado, let's get happy. Let's get rocking. Let's get Olivia in here and get this kicked off. Good evening, Olivia.
Hello.
Rich gave basically your elevator speech, what you tell folks when you first meet them. Why don't you and I tell you what, I was reading your bio and I was like, wow, when do you have time to do anything else? This plus you have 2 children. How do you do it?
Time management, right? The military taught me time management.
Yes. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us about your service and some high points of it, and we'll just go from there.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show and the opportunity to share my story. I truly appreciate that. So, and the fact that I could be here and share, especially during Veterans Week. So thank you so much. I think my journey really started when I was a kid. My father was an Army veteran himself. He was in the Army when I was a kid. I'm the oldest of 3 girls, and I'm daddy's little girl. And he was in the Army. He was a combat engineer. And ever since I was 4 years old, I wanted to be in the Army. I wanted to be just like my dad. What I was going to do in the Army, how long I was going to be in the Army, I had no clue. The only thing that my father said is that you will not enlist, you will become an officer. And telling me that when I was little, I had no idea what that meant. So I'm first generation Korean American, and in our culture, education is highly prized. And that was something that my parents were adamant that I was going to go to college and I was going to get my education and my degree first. And so that was really the path that my parents wanted for me. And so becoming an officer was really what my dad wanted me to focus on. And again, the end state was the Army. What I was going to be and what I was going to do, I had no idea. But following my dad's footstep was the goal. And so in 2001, I commissioned as an Army officer, and I was a chemical officer. And that was before 9/11. 9/11 happened actually while I was at Officer Basic. And so that was kind of the beginning of my career. It changed the trajectory of what I wanted to do in the military and what I thought I was going to do. Went to Officer Basic School at Fort Leonard Wood, and then, found myself in combat. I did 3 tours to Iraq. I spent a lot of my tactical time at Fort Hood, and then found myself at the strategic levels at West Point, the United States Military Academy in New York. And then I finaled out my last 6 years at Pentagon. So I had a real good look at the military from a tactical level all the way to a strategic look. But if you had told me at the beginning that I was going to finish out at 20 years and as a lieutenant colonel, I probably would have looked at you like you grew a horn out of your head, because I had, again, no idea, let alone that I was going to finish out as a public affairs officer. I just knew that I wanted to be a soldier.
I completely understand. And, that was like when I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to be a soldier. My dad was. And when I graduated high school, I joined for 3 years and the college money because I wanted to get an education. Well, 25 years and another MOS later, I got out of the Army. So, it was definitely, it wasn't planned that way. And I know exactly what you mean. I never would have, when I joined, I never would have dreamed that I would have done that much time and did all the things that I did. But, chemical officer, much respect for that. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to have to know.
I lucked out in a couple of respects. So chemical, or chemo for short, because I had this long title, right? Chemo stood for CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. And everyone's like, wow, Olivia, you must be this scientist. I'm like, well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, funny thing was, I actually knew a lot of that because I went to college and started off as a chemistry major. And I think that's why the Army was interested in me as being a chemical officer, but that's not what I finished out. I realized that while I loved the science part of chemistry, I didn't like the math part. Me and math just didn't get along. Contrary to me being Asian, me and math just did not get along. That side of my brain, the left side, not so much. The right side, that's great, right? I'm musically inclined, but not the math side. But what I think I lucked out in, I had amazing chemical soldiers that really were great at their craft. And what that led me to do was be able to do jobs in the Army with organizations that allowed me to do other things. They say the chemo is a jack of all trades. And I think the type of personality that I had, because what my father has instilled in me is that nothing is given to you, not because you're a woman, not because you're short. I mean, I'm 5'1", not because you're a minority, because you earn it. You earn it by putting in the work. You earn it because you put in the time. And for me, I didn't want to be a team player or not be a team player or be a person that was on the staff that was kind of a bump on the log. Oftentimes chemical officers are kind of treated like, the redheaded stepchild, kind of shoved into the corner. And I was not like that. I was pretty much like, hey, sir, hey, coach, put me in. I may not be, a combat arms officer in this all male unit, but put me in. Teach me what I need to know, or I'm going to learn it myself. And I want to be part of the team. How do I add to the team? And so while I was a chemical officer, I did everything else that wasn't chemical related. And so that was something that I enjoyed. But I had proficient chemical NCOs that were assigned to me that helped me do my job when needed. And then I think the other part that I was very fortunate, when I went to Iraq during the first deployment in 2003, there were a couple chemical incidences that occurred on the battlefield. And so as a chemo, I actually got to put to use the things that I was trained as a chemical officer. There was actual incidences on the battlefield that I had to actually kind of work through. And so for me, I was like, hey, this is what the Army trained me to do. And that was actually kind of unique and really cool for me to handle, in a combat environment.
Yeah, we well, now I wasn't there around that time frame, but had we been in country at the same time, we probably might have run into each other. And I was going to tell you, with that attitude you had, I would have loved to have you as an EOD officer. That would have been great. And that's what those chemical times would probably be the time that we would have run into each other. But I loved having the chemical folks around because that meant I didn't have to deal with the chemicals. So,
I mean, they're around, I think, a lot more than people realized, right? There was, canisters of mustard gas and things like that in Iraq that I think people really didn't realize. And that's what we were dealing with. So I'm glad that I had great team members on my team, great NCOs that allowed me to be a good leader and learn how to be a good leader. So that was early on in my career that really helped shape me to grow as a young leader, to advance in how I wanted to lead.
Yeah, if you have those, especially like I said, early in your career, if you have that good foundation that you can build on, that just sets you up for so much success in the rest of your career. And hey, if you're a young soldier on there listening tonight, take heed of that. Surround yourself with good people, and and build yourself up, build them up. So you were a chemical officer, you did all that, and then you went into PAO, correct?
Correct. Public affairs.
Okay.
So
Tell us about that.
For me, the Army said, hey, you're looking at 8 years right now. And if you're choosing to stay in the military, you have the opportunity to change out your career. And of course, we may not agree with you, but if you could rank order the 3 that you would like to do. So what are they? And do you want to stay operational? Operational being the career field that you're actually still in, so chemical. And for me, I was looking at where I was at. I was a senior captain and I was already doing field grade positions, and I was actually not really liking it. And I was like, I can't see myself staying in the chemical branch doing field grade positions because I'm not liking it right now. So I wanted to change. And for me, I've always been a storyteller because I've always told stories in my head. I like telling stories all the time. So I thought that public affairs was a natural fit. So I selected public affairs. And then I was like, I like working with people. So if they don't give me public affairs, maybe I'll go adjutant general, because that was actually my first pick when I first came into the Army, and they said, no, you can't be there. And I was like, well, maybe they'll give it to me this time. And then the third option, I was like, well, I really don't like money, but if they won't give me those 2, I'll take money over staying chemical. But for whatever, the Army said, we agree with your choice, your number one choice of going public affairs. So the Army sent me off to public affairs school. We call it DINFOS. And I was selected to go around halfway through my career, around the 9.5, 10-year mark. And so I was moved from the chemical branch right into public affairs. And I spent the last half of my career, Army career, as being a public affairs officer.
Awesome. And I know as a public affairs officer, you probably got to meet and see some really neat stuff.
as a public affairs officer, oftentimes you are an official Army spokesperson, and I had the opportunity and the honor of being able to represent the Army at the highest levels. I represented the Army and was the voice of the Army at the United States Military Academy. I worked with top executives that came onto the Academy grounds. I worked with HBO when they filmed a story that they did with the football team. They actually created a movie about the football team. So if you actually look at the end credits, you'll see like my name as one of the people that they worked with. I was not just the only one. There was a whole slew of people that they worked with at the Academy. I was just one of many. I saw many dignitaries. And then when I went to the Pentagon, I worked at the Office of Chief of Army Public Affairs, and I was an official spokesperson for the Army, where I was in the bullpen and answering questions that the media would oftentimes ask. Everything from questions about at the time when I was in transgender women in combat, religious accommodations, to military working dogs. There's just some of the topics that I had worked on while I was there. And I had a lot of fun doing it. It was really neat to be able to sit at some of the top levels of the Army and to be able to write some of the strategic communication pieces and to be able to deliver those key pieces on behalf of the Army.
Well, yeah, getting our message out and getting it out, true to form, to where nobody can twist it or make it into what they want to make it into. We got a comment here from the peanut gallery here. Dragonfire 68 said, "This is awesome, 2 movies at once, The Rock and Hurt Locker." So talking about chemical and EOD. So after that, you do your PAO time, you hit your 20 years, you get out, and then, looking at your bio, things really took off. I mean, you have, you're an advocate, you're a veterans advocate, and then you've got the Pan-Pacific American Leaders and Mentors. You've got the Veteran Success and Resource Group that you're dealing with, and 2 podcasts that are on our friends, Heroes Media Group, Unbreakable Storm and Women of War, where you get on there. And so why don't we just start at the top and talk about what you're doing with all those organizations?
Yeah, so Veteran Success Resource Group, I've known Scott. He's the co-founder, Scott Davidson. I've been working with them when I was at U.S. Army Soldier for Life since 2018. And then when I retired in 2021, I moved from as somebody who was an outside organization working with them to actually being part of the organization. And I currently serve as the Chief Media Officer. And Veteran Success Resource Group, or otherwise known as VSRG, is a nonprofit dedicated to strengthening the military and veteran community through connection, resources, and real-world support. And one of the biggest things that we're actually really known for is BURBIZ. It's a play on word, bourbon and business. And it's a large-scale networking experience. It's a conference that we bring veterans and transitioning service members and military families together with employers, business leaders, government partners, and resources, where we do classes and just, think transition assistance program TAP, but just on steroids, just very tailored,
Nice.
Very targeted, but all in one place. So a one-stop shop. And BURBIZ is been around for 10 years, and it's a powerful community hub that mixes connection with opportunity, and everything that VSRG is known for is about connecting the military community, because we understand that support is needed long after the uniform comes off. Mm-hmm. And speaking of support, this Saturday, VSRG partnered with amazing community partners such as Paisanos, Great American Pizza, just to name a couple. Will be at the Paisanos location in Lorton in Virginia, where we're hosting a special community event to help feed military families. We know that we've been in a hard economic environment, especially with the government shutdown. Yes, we know that the government, turned on, just today, but that there's an impact, right? There's an impact to that. And it takes time for everything kind of to turn back on, if we're talking here literally and figuratively. And so that has impacted our community. And so we want to be able to help our military families in a very meaningful and tangible way by feeding them, right? Providing diapers and canned goods and an actual warm meal. And so if you are a military family, if you're active guard, veteran, just show up with your ID and, and sign up. If you look at our social media, you could simply sign up. It's a Eventbrite form and show up, right? And walk away with the ability to feed your family. And so that's just one organization that I'm involved in. The other one you mentioned is Pan Pacific American Leaders and Mentors, PPALM for short. PPALM was actually started by a former Chief of Staff of the Army, General Shinseki. And I serve as the vice president of communications for that organization. I've been there for over 5 years. And PPALM is a national organization committed to strengthening. Realistically, it's more than national. It's a global organization that's committed to strengthening leadership within the military and government by supporting the professional growth of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander leaders. And what I appreciate about PPALM is the focus on mentorship, community, and opening doors for the next generation to grow as leaders. And we give people access to guidance and network and the support that they need to advance in their careers and to continue to make a positive impact both in their service and beyond. So that's just two that I'm involved in, and that I'm very proud of the work that both of those two organizations do. Every single person, they're both small, they're both mighty. There's only a handful of people that work in both of those organizations, and they're all volunteers, right? No one gets paid. It's all volunteer. Everyone works hard because they love giving of their time and their service because that's what they believe in.
And I want to add to that. And I think PPALM, when I was reading through it, and just being exposed, living on military bases throughout 25 years and everything like that. A lot of that, I believe, comes from the culture there is so dynamic, because I have never seen a sense of community like I have in the Asian community. It's like, I have never seen any other community besides maybe the Amish that help each other the way that the Asian community does. And that just always astounded me. I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah, but I think you can say that about our community as a whole, right? The military community is about helping ourselves, right? Because the one thing is that you can't earn. And the title of veteran is something that we just don't give away. You have to earn that, and you earn that because you've raised your right hand and you've served our country. And so once you do that, you're now part of this collective family, right? This tribe. And within that, PPALM is just one of many amazing organizations. Yes. And, the very last job that I did for the United States Army was U.S. Army Soldier for Life. In fact, a lot of people recognize my face from that particular organization. I had the honor of being able to create a podcast series for that organization. And in doing so, I met amazing people, amazing organizations, corporations that wanted to be able to work with the military and to give back to our service members. And there are just companies and organizations that want to partner and come alongside the military and to do good. And so if there's something that interests you or something that you want to grow and learn, I guarantee you there's a company out there. It's just getting through the sea of information to find where you want to go. So there is a due diligence that you have to do as an individual, as a service member, as a transitioning service member to find that. But it is out there. And there are people that are willing to help you do that. And there's organizations that will help you decipher or wade through that sea of information.
Yeah, and I don't know if they did it because I retired in 2011. I don't think they were doing it when I got out. But if they'd have had it, I would have jumped on it, or if I'd have heard about it. And that's the internship program that I went to Tractor Supply here a few months ago, and there was a guy in there, and I guess I still keep my hair short, and I might have had on a hat with something military on it. He comes up to me and starts talking to me. he was a CW4 Apache pilot, working for 90 days at Tractor Supply as an intern, just, learning the business and learning how to run a retail shop and all that stuff. He says, the Army's got this now. You can go be an intern, and, all kinds of businesses do it. And I think that's amazing. The leaps and bounds that the Army has taken to help transitioning soldiers.
Yep. DoD Skill Bridge is a great way in which in your last 6 months of transitioning that you can work with organizations that are willing to give you the opportunity to learn about their organization. So within your last 6 months of your transition, you can do an internship. And so that would be your place of duty, right? And there are some restrictions into how and where you can work with the companies, how far from your duty base and who can sign off, the length of time. Every single branch has different requirements, whether you're Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, etc. But the DoD Skill Bridge is a great opportunity to help you figure out your next stepping stone before you completely shed that uniform and you receive your DD 214.
Yeah, I think when I got out, it was like, buy a suit for your job interviews, write a good resume, make sure there's no misspelling on it, and good luck. And they shuttled us out the door. So on top of those two things, you also have 2 podcasts that are that are on Heroes Media Group.
Yes.
We have start first with the Unbreakable Storm.
Yeah, so I'm about to launch 2 podcast series here shortly. Unbreakable Storm is one of 2. Unbreakable Storm is about people that have hit rock bottom and have ridden through the storms of life and chose to rise above it all. Define rock bottom. Rock bottom can be your business tanking. It could be that you went through a divorce. It could be that you transitioned out of the military, because that is an identity crisis, right? That's hard when that's the only thing that you've known for a long time, whether it was 3 years or 30 years. Mm-hmm. A death of a family member, whatever that may be, rock bottom is different for each one of us. And sometimes rock bottom can be a mix of those things all at once. And that comes from a very personal experience for me. I was transitioning out of the military, I was retiring. I went through an unexpected divorce. And I also started my own business at the same time. And for me, I had to come to grips with my identity crisis of I'm no longer Lieutenant Colonel Olivia Nunn. I was divorcing from the Army, and I was going through a literal divorce of my now ex-husband, but we had been together for 20 years. So I went through my whole entire Army career with my spouse. We have 2 children together. And then I had to deal with all of the things that I had put into this box, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. I had been assaulted when I was a lieutenant by my platoon sergeant. The sexual harassments that I've dealt with, the near-death experiences, all of those things that I just kind of, opened the box, shoved it into the box and closed the lid. All of that just kind of sprang open, and that lid no longer wanted to close. And I had to deal with all of that all at once. That box was just like, nope, you're not going to close this anymore. You're going to have to deal with this in real time. And so I literally hit rock bottom. And for me, hitting rock bottom, I went to a very dark place, and I would successfully planned ways for me to leave this earth. And I came close to doing so. And I was looking for help and had a hard time finding resources to get help. And so that was a journey for me on the back end, and why advocacy became something very personal for me, because I had this understanding once my mind was clear, and I received a lot of help, and I went through a ton of therapy, both through prayer and therapy and behavioral health, that here I was, a lieutenant colonel, and I was U.S. Army soldier for life that had access to all these resources. And I knew a lot of these resources, and I couldn't get help. And it wasn't that these organizations weren't willing to help. The issue is they were out of resources to give. There's not enough resources to give. That's the problem. Whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's people, resources are not enough. And that was the issue that I was finding when I was making calls or emails, and I was desperate. I was desperate where I'm like, I need something. I need either to get checked into a program. I need somebody to talk to me. I'm feeling desperate, lost, and alone. And I feel so shattered and so empty. And I need someone to help me walk off this ledge. And because when you're that dark, you feel unloved, unlovable, and so worthless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really needed a resource, a lifeline, and there just wasn't enough. And for me, all of that became a reason for my advocacy. And so Unbreakable Storm is about these stories of other people, of how they've hit rock bottom and how they're going to choose to rise to the top, whatever that rock bottom is. And then Women of War is exactly that. It is a podcast series designed to bring the stories of women who have served in the military, or they're nurses, or they are women that are in law enforcement, or women who are first responders. And the idea is that we have dealt with the front lines, whether that's, in combat, or front lines in terms of just in service, or the mental front lines, right? The things that we have dealt with because of the time in the uniform, depending on what employment that we have. And I believe that we should be able to share those stories. Oftentimes, especially, and I speak to being a veteran, because that's what I did for 20 years, is that our stories, or being looked at as a soldier, we are looked at as invisible, right? Oftentimes I have to prove that I was a soldier. Oftentimes, like if I park in a veteran spot, I'm told, hey, honey, that's for real heroes. You're not a hero. You have to wait till your husband comes back, not knowing that I wore the uniform. Thank you very much. I have combat boots. Thank you very much. I've done 3 tours. I could do circles around you. Thank you. But it's this belief that because I'm a woman, I didn't serve, or because I'm a woman, I'm discredited, or I don't have the ability or capability. And so that's the point of Women of War, that to bring these stories to life, that we have been here. We have been there since the founding of our country. And we have been part of the service. We are a force multiplier, and we are the war fighter. And so I just want to bring those stories to light.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I watched a documentary the other day, and it was about 2 ladies who lived in the South, but they were spies for the North, and just talked about their contributions to the Union Army during the Civil War, and they lived in some dire danger. I mean, it was bad stuff, and I was like, wow, the things that they had to go through. Got a question here that popped up from Hungry Man Tater. Olivia, what inspired you to transition from military leadership to public relations and advocacy work?
Well, I think leaving the military, because I was public affairs, public relations is a direct one-to-one fit. Public affairs and public relations are very similar, whereas public affairs is more government and policy, and public relations does more marketing, but they're very similar and the same. And then the advocacy, I think, was just born out of just my personal side, the story, and the want to really serve. I think serving is still very much within me. I've said this numerous times. I've posted about it. I've podcasted about it. My heart is with the military community, and whatever I choose to do, wherever I'm going, serving the military community is where I'm happiest. and I think it's just a natural fit for me to advocate where I think the stories aren't being heard or clearly understood. And I think where the connection or the aha moment for me was when I served at U.S. Army Soldier for Life, because I had the unique opportunity to go literally all around the world to talk about the Army. And when I talked about the Army, I talked about statistics. And I talked about statistics to the 99%. What do I mean by that? 0.45% serve in any 1/6 branches of the United States military. So let's round it up because I don't like math. I talked about that earlier, right? So let's keep it simple. 1% wear our nation's cloth. So 99% do not. Of that 99%, 50% of the US population do not understand the military. They have no connection to the military. And the way that they understand the military is what they see on the news or in movies. So that can either be a positive or negative experience based on how they interpret the news and or movie. And I guarantee you, majority of the time it's negative because of the way they interpret that information. And so especially because of what we did for 20 years, we are viewed as broken. Veterans are broken because of our PTSD instead of viewing us as community members and valued members because we are valued members to the workforce or valued members to the community because of our soft skills, because we are leaders, because we have great time management skills, because we can, understand what the mission or the job or the perspectives and get you rolling, right? That we can work with all peoples of all walks of life, put aside our differences and get the ball moving and get to the end, right? That is the beauty of our diversity of our force. But we don't really talk about that, or the news doesn't talk about that. Hollywood doesn't talk about that. It talks about all the negative parts of us.
Yes.
And so I understood that because of the unique position that I was in. And so all that to say where advocacy came in is that when I started talking about advocacy in the way of American people did not understand why it was so important that the American people, understand where our community comes from, why they should be part of the story, and why they should be advocating on our behalf. So when I talk about how we have a lack of resources, they looked at me like I grew a horn off my head. And it was just like an eye-opening experience. They're like, what do you mean you don't have enough mental health resources? And as I broke it down, here's an example. As I was going through my own journey, here's a very great example about MRIs. How many of our service members have been scanned for their brain? So you have a baseline of what your brain looks like. And then let's talk about what part of your brain is important to understand that baseline. It's this part, the front part. In order to get a clear picture, the MRI machine that's required, you should have, it's a Tesla 3, right? It's the coil of the MRI, right? It's the magnetic resonance, right? But here, the problem is most hospitals across the nation, whether in the military hospital or not, most hospitals, their MRI machines are a Tesla level 1. So if I just said to get a clear picture of the front part of your brain, you need at least a level 3, but most hospitals run at a level 1. What clear imagery are we really getting?
Yeah,
if you're even getting one, we're not getting. You don't even have a baseline. You have a baseline for hearing. And do you even get that, and the only reason why you get annually because that's part of your requirement, right?
Yes.
But do you have a baseline for your head? Do we know your baseline? And then compare that every year and or by the time you get out so you truly understand what your brain looks like. We don't. But it's not just a baseline MRI scan. It's specific tests to understand the impact that's going on with your head. We truly don't understand this, right? And so when I start explaining that, and then I said, oh, by the way, there's this Tesla level 10, only one in the world, and it's going to Auburn University, because I went to where that's being set up, and I was in disbelief. And I said, how many military will come through your program? They said, we'll work with military, but that's not our primary function. Because it's right.
It's close. I'd be sending everybody from Fort Benning over there.
They said that they would work. It's not that they wouldn't, but that's not their primary. And so in that moment, I broke down. I started crying. Like, to me, it's like, why not? Why not?
You know what? The military, leads the world in ways to develop ways to kill people. Why can't we lead the world in, I mean, they have led the world before in, studies of infectious diseases and
Yes.
and stuff like that. Yeah. Why not brain? Because other than football players, I don't think anybody else but the military has more brain injuries than anybody on the planet. I can't think of any.
Correct. And that's just one example of where I realized in storytelling how there's a disconnect between civilian communities and military communities, of how they don't really understand us, and how it's important that I truly believe that this is a problem set that every single side must come to the table to work. I believe in that moment, this is what I came away with. Every fiber of my being believes in the following. We have right now the machines, the scientists, the money, and the know-how and the capability to actually effectively get after TBI and mental health and make an effective dent in the military community and drop suicide to a level that we can actually sit back and say we did something. I 100% believe that. But the issue is we're misaligned. The people, the money, the resources, the know-how, all of that, all those things that I just said, they're misaligned and they're not talking to each other and they don't know each other. And so in that moment, I had this epiphany. I'm like, if I can just make this my mission, and through storytelling to get those things aligned where the right people are talking at the right time with the right resources, the right dollars, and the military community and the civilian community are working together, we can definitely make a change. And that was where I was like, this is why advocacy to me is important. This is what I want to do.
Yes, because I can rack off, and I'm not going to say their names, but 5 people who were just at the bottom because of TBI. And I got to say, we have a very good TBI clinic here on Fort Campbell. And they started, getting therapy at that clinic, and it changed their lives. I mean, they went from not wanting to get up in the morning, hating life, all this, to like, that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's just amazing what a little bit can do. And we need to get on that, because I know if I climb in that MRI machine in the VA hospital that's down in Nashville, that thing sounds like a steam locomotive cranking up. I don't know how old that thing is, but yeah, it's an old one. So you say a Tesla 10 is the one that's going to Auburn, and you need a Tesla 3 to read your brain. Do we need to call Elon and get him on this and get more built?
Something, right? And that's my whole point, right? That I know there are great organizations doing great things all the time, but not one organization is going to be able to do this all by themselves. It's not just mental health and TBI and PTSD that is killing us, right? Actually, in fact, the number one killer of veterans is actually cancer.
Yes.
And I know one mighty organization that's doing a lot of work to help our community in that. That's Hunter 7. And the amount of work that one small organization does is phenomenal. But they need help too. They need help with people, and they need help with dollars. They need to advance the research, the funding, the type of tests that they do, right, to be able to save more lives. And on top of that, when veterans are being diagnosed with cancer, it's the treatments, the cost of treatments, right? That's just an example. And so again, I truly believe we have the ability, we have the capability, we have the people, we have the money. They're just all misaligned. They just don't know each other, or they're just not talking. And I just believe that we just need to get them, whether that's all show up at the stadium at one time and start connecting and playing, matchmaker or something. But I truly believe that we could seriously make a dent in some of the problems that we have in the veteran community if we could just remove some barriers and open doors.
Yes, we can. Got a couple questions that popped up in. I knew they'd start rolling in. From Lewis Dan, how do you see storytelling as a form of healing for veterans and military families? Thank you for that question, Lewis Dan.
I believe that storytelling is a way that opens a doorway for people to heal. It's very cathartic when you start telling your story, but also when you hear someone else's story, it gives breath and space for that person to realize they're not alone. And that was one of the things for me why I share my story of why I came close to committing suicide and being successful with that. And also my assault story of being assaulted by my platoon sergeant. I share those stories because I want people to know that I'm not the only one and you're not alone. I am just one simple story amongst the hundreds, the thousands of stories that are very similar to mine. That when I pull on this thread, there are things that I'm going to say that are very similar to yours. And in storytelling, oftentimes I find we are more alike than we are different. Mm-hmm. And when I share that piece, and it helps you to realize that you and I are the same. I put on my pants just like you. I have hurt just like you. And it allows you to breathe and to say, I see myself in you, and I am willing to share a little bit of my hurt and know that it's okay to not be okay. And that gives them space to breathe. And sometimes if they've been holding that in for so long that they realize that they can let it go and then potentially go seek the help that they need. Because it's easier to hide it. I say that smiles hide a lot. And storytelling is a great way to open that gateway. It's a softer way to open that gateway instead of just asking those harsh questions.
Yes, it is. And matter of fact, that's how I got started doing this. Rich had me on here at, I think it was a Veterans Week. I come on and I talked, and then I noticed that I felt better after I did it. And then after that, he's like, hey, you want to come do a few shows? And it's like, well, yeah, I'll come on. And this is, hearing these stories every week and talking to people every week is so healing for me. And that's just personally, because everybody, they might not have the same exact problems, but everybody, especially every veteran, they've all kind of got the same area of problems, which brings me to the next question. From Run Me Fast, what advice would you give to women veterans who are still searching for their post-service identity? Thank you for the question.
I often say, I say this to women and to men, find the little girl that you once were, the version of yourself that didn't care about what other people thought, right? The happy care version of yourself that wanted to chase passion, whatever that passion was. Tap into that version of you and find the passion that you want to explore. And honestly, it's okay if that list is a mile long. It took you time to become an amazing soldier, sailor, Marine, airman. And it's going to take you time to figure out who you are outside of that uniform. And there's going to be multiple versions of you. The person you are on day one, when you take off those boots, will not be the person you are on year 1 or year 4. And that is totally okay. You will reinvent yourself time and time again. The biggest part is find you, give yourself grace, and know that you can reinvent yourself every single step of the way. What's most important is find the tribe that can help you as you redevelop yourself, whether that's other veteran women that you could tap into, whether it's another tribe that's very similar to which you want to go into. And don't be afraid, right? Everything that you want is on the other side of fear, right? Freedom is on the other side of fear. And so chase it, right? I want my pilot's license. So I took my first introductory course of flying, right?
Nice.
like I'm an adrenaline junkie. And so like all the things that are fast or fearful or, like those are the things that I want to check off, right? I didn't go to airborne. I'm not airborne and air assault. Those are the things I did not do in the Army, but those are the things I want to chase. I'm like, I'm going to go jump out of the plane, a perfectly working plane as, civilian style. That's, I'm going to do that. Learning how to play the guitar. I've been saying that for like 20 some years. I play the piano already, right? So I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. That's like on my checklist. So find the things that you're passionate about that you want to chase. And whatever it is, pursue it with passion. Even if you fall, even if you make a fool of yourself, right? Even if you make mistakes, pursue it with passion, with wild abandonment.
Yes. And the passion in it, and if you keep the passion for it, you're going to be good at it. You're not just going to go through it and just hit all the wickets. You're actually going to be good at it. Got another one from OTR Redhead. That would be probably Over the Road Redhead. With your experience in leadership and diversity, how can organizations better support veterans, especially women in the workplace? Thank you for that question, OTR Redhead.
I think first, oftentimes I found out in some of the corporate spaces that I've had the opportunity of being invited to do some speaking, because I am a motivational speaker, is sometimes some organizations don't know the full scope of the veterans that they have, even though they have like, veterans within their workspace and they've identified some of them. Sometimes they don't necessarily identify all of their veterans. Women don't always self-identify as veterans for a lot of reasons. And so how my recommendation to some of the companies has been like, do you have a support group for women, right? Do you have someone that can take lead in that within your own organization? Because every company has their own culture. And so how can that women veteran group within your culture can be aligned? And, what can you do, or what can this company do that can best support that subgroup, right? And then I think the other part is sometimes another veteran doesn't know that there's another veteran within the organization, again, because they just don't self-identify, right? It's just one of those things that you kind of find out later on that's like, oh, Sue happened to mention like 3 years later after you've been working with her that she's like, oh yeah, I served in the Marines for a couple of years. Just like this offhanded comment. Well, that would have been kind of cool to know, a couple of years ago, that they could have worked on something. And so I think that's something simple as knowing who your audience truly is. And then knowing what that audience really needs within the workspace. But I also say like, that's kind of true in all of your subcultures, right? I don't think that's just women. I think oftentimes it's like, what does your subcultures need? And how can you best support them? Do you have working moms in your organization that need support because maybe they're young working moms, right? And so that's kind of one take. And then you can kind of dive from there.
I'm a big advocate if it's a big enough company and they can do it and provide low cost childcare at the workplace. And I've always been a big advocate of that. But
I think some of the low hanging fruit for that group is, can a company bring in, outside, support, right? If the company has, the dollars to bring in coaches, like leadership coaches, like veteran leadership coaches that can, talk directly to that group. If that's what that group is looking for, that can always be helpful. I mean, I think it's understanding where it really breaks down to is what is that company and what are the needs of those particular veterans within the organization, and how can the company best support them? Because I think oftentimes they don't even know how to support their veterans because they haven't even asked that question because they haven't taken a good hard look, is what I find.
Yes. Oh, well, we are getting down to the wire here. We didn't even get into this, that that you are also a communication strategist, a brand strategist, and a social media strategist and event planner. So we are just going to go with that. And if somebody wants to utilize your services as one of those planners, how do they get in touch with you?
So I'm all over social media. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me as Olivia Nunn on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as _Olivia Nunn. I'm also on Facebook as Olivia Nunn. You can send me a message. I have a website. It's www.olivianunn.com. You can shoot me an email. It's olivia@olivianunn.com. And if you have a question about branding or social media or event planning, shoot me a message, and I can shoot you my Calendly link and we can jump on a call.
All right. That sounds great. Well, Olivia, it has been amazing. Now I have one more question from me to you. What are 3 non-negotiables that you have to do every day to make your day complete?
Ooh, that's kind of hard. I work on this because I think this is kind of hard for me. I don't look at the world as a glass full type of person.
Mhm.
Because the Army made me a very good planner. And I'm very good at contingency planning. So I'm always looking at the world as like everything's going to fall apart. And my partner, he always looks at the world as the glass is half full. And so I try to find glad, right? If you remember Pollyanna,
Mhm.
try to find glad moments. Because I think that rewires your brain. I'm not very good at that. I'm trying to be. And then I think the other part is never stop, whatever that is, right? That's for me, never stop is like never stop trying, never stop looking, never stop quitting. And I think that's a few things. I've hit rock bottom in my company in terms of not having clients. I've hit rock bottom because I was unemployed because of Doge cutting contracts, so I didn't have income coming in. And so that's, oftentimes caused me to spiral, think a lot of times inside my own head and, go to dark places. So for me, it's like never stop, right? Because if I stop, then I will spend so much time in my head, then I can easily spiral out of control and go very dark and start thinking about how I choose to want to leave here. And so for me, it's how do I not stop? How do I fill my white spaces productively?
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, keeping that white space filled, if you stay busy, you ain't got time to think about quitting and doing bad stuff to yourself. So yeah, and we're glad that when you hit your dark spot, you came out of it. We're glad that you're still here. We loved having you this evening, and it was a real interesting chat, and we wish you continued success with what you're doing. And if you do anything big, if you break something out and got something that you want to just tell everybody, contact us again. We'll get on here and we'll talk about it.
I appreciate it. And thanks for the opportunity to be here on the show with y'all. I appreciate it.
It was a fun show. Really enjoyed myself. Thanks for being here. MisFitNation, I know that you did not get rich this evening. You got me. Hey, deal with it. But we really appreciate you hanging out, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. And again, if you're out there, you're not feeling right about yourself, you're feeling the darkness, get on that phone, punch in 988 for your veteran, take option 1. You have our contact info, Jake at themisfitnation.com, or Stephen at themisfitnation.com, or info at themisfitnation.com. Just get on there, reach out to us. We will call you and get in touch with you. We love each and every one of you, and we want to see you here tomorrow. And with that being said, we're going to sign off.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation.